Welcome back, everyone. We've got a lot to cover today. A ton of news, actually, from vulnerability backlogs and AI considerations to ransomware's latest tricks. Even a story about a former NFL coach indicted for hacking into athletes' personal data.
Oh, yeah. It's a pretty wild mix today. Lots to unpack and analyze. Should be a fascinating deep dive.
Definitely. So let's get right to it. We're starting off with NIST, the National Institute of Standards and Technology. More specifically, their National Vulnerability Database, the NVD. It's facing a pretty serious issue.
A backlog.
Exactly. A big one. They're getting absolutely slammed with submissions. Common vulnerabilities and exposures, or CVEs, jumped a whopping 32% just last year, and they expect even more this year.
So even though they're processing them at the same rate as before 2024, the sheer volume is creating this huge bottleneck.
You got it. NIST themselves admit their systems just weren't built for this kind of influx. They're now even looking at AI and machine learning to try and manage it all. Makes sense considering how many vulnerabilities are being discovered every day.
Right. I mean, this backlog is a big deal. The NVD is a central resource for vulnerability management globally. Everyone relies on it to assess and address risks. Any delays mean attackers have more time to exploit those weaknesses.
It's almost like a crucial supply route getting jammed up. Everything slows down.
Exactly. And think about it, even NIST, a leading security authority, is struggling to keep up. It's a whole different world compared to when vulnerabilities were less frequent and could be handled manually.
Times have definitely changed. And relying on so many manual processes just makes the problem even worse. Automation seems essential, but it's not like you can just flip a switch. AI needs to be implemented very carefully and tested thoroughly if we want it to be reliable and accurate.
Absolutely. The entire security ecosystem hinges on the NBD functioning properly. If these delays continue, it'll have ripple effects throughout the industry.
Moving on, we've got a bit of a standoff brewing between Oracle and a hacker who goes by Rose87168. This individual claims to have a massive amount of Oracle Cloud records. We're talking 6 million lines of data, including encrypted password hashes supposedly up for sale. They even suggested they got in through an exploit, CVE 2021-35587, in Oracle Fusion middleware.
That's a critical one, pre-authentication remote code execution. Basically, if exploited, someone could run any code they wanted on that vulnerable system without even needing to log in. Talk about a major security hole.
And to add fuel to the fire, this hacker posted alleged proof, a file on Oracle's infrastructure, although that was quickly taken down.
Sounds like they're trying to make a statement.
For sure. But here's the thing. Oracle completely denies any breach. They claim these credentials aren't even related to the cloud and that no customer data was compromised.
But that deleted post on X, even though it's archived now, definitely throws a wrench in their denial. It creates uncertainty, and security teams have to take that seriously.
Absolutely. It's possible the hacker's bluffing or the data came from a third-party source, not directly from Oracle Cloud, but the public claim and that brief proofs are red flags. Anyone using Oracle Cloud will be scrutinizing this very carefully. It erodes trust regardless of the truth.
You can't blame them. Transparency is key in situations like this.
Now for something a bit more concrete. A Russian exploit broker called Operation Zero just put a huge bounty on zero-day exploits targeting Telegram. Up to $4 million for a complete exploit chain working across all major platforms.
Wow, that's a massive incentive. Tells you how badly they want to crack Telegram. And it's not just some random group. Operation Zero has a history. They supply exploits to both the Russian government and private clients. This is a targeted move, no doubt.
And Telegram is known for its strong encryption and huge user base, making it a prime target for those seeking to conduct surveillance or gather intel.
For sure. Their pricing structure is interesting too. $500,000 for one-click remote code execution, $1.5 million for a zero-click exploit, and then that top tier for the full chain. Shows how much value they put on different levels of access. It's a bit like how Zerodium, that US-based exploit broker, operates. They also offer huge payouts for valuable 0 days.
Speaking of Zerodium, it seems they slowed down this year. Makes Operation Zero's move even more interesting. They might be trying to capitalize on this shift in the exploit market.
It makes you wonder if they see an opportunity to become the go-to source for these kinds of exploits.
Possibly. And Telegram's focus on privacy and global reach makes it a major target for governments who want to monitor or disrupt secure communications. A successful exploit could have significant geopolitical implications, enabling espionage or even targeting dissidents.
Absolutely. And the size of the bounty indirectly suggests how tough it is to find those vulnerabilities. It speaks to Telegram's current security strength, but also highlights how determined some actors are to break through those defenses.
In a surprising turn of events, the U.S. Treasury just reversed its sanctions against Tornado Cash, the cryptocurrency mixer. Remember, they labeled it a money laundering hub back in 2022.
Yeah, they claimed it was used to launder billions of dollars, even funds connected to North Korean hackers. Led to arrests and a huge debate in the crypto community about privacy versus regulation in decentralized finance.
Right. And a Texas judge initially upheld those sanctions, but then the Fifth Circuit Court overturned that decision last November.
Their reasoning was interesting. They argued smart contracts, that self-executing code on the blockchain, aren't property under the Treasury's jurisdiction.
And now the Treasury has basically given up, saying the case is moot.
This is a big legal precedent. The Fifth Circuit's ruling challenged the Treasury's authority to sanction decentralized protocols like they would individuals or traditional financial institutions.
Coinbase's legal counsel made a good point. A clear final ruling would provide more certainty, but the Treasury's action suggests they recognize the complexity of regulating DeFi.
It's definitely a win for crypto advocates who champion privacy, but the Treasury is clear they'll keep going after illicit crypto flows, especially anything tied to North Korea.
Feels like a pause in a much bigger fight. The desire for privacy in digital assets versus the push for regulation, transparency, and accountability. This tension isn't going away anytime soon.
No, it's a fundamental clash that will likely continue as DeFi evolves. The question is, how will both sides adapt and what compromises might emerge?
Shifting gears a bit, the Federal Communications Commission, or FCC, is pretty concerned. They suspect that banned Chinese telecom providers, Huawei and ZTE specifically, might still be operating within U.S. networks. This is despite the rip-and-replace program that's cost billions to remove their equipment.
I can see why they're worried. The bans were put in place due to national security risks, mainly the potential for those companies' equipment to be used for espionage by the Chinese government. Rip and replace, despite its cost and complexity, was meant to tackle that threat head-on.
But the FCC chair, Brendan Carr, thinks there might be loopholes, unregulated ways for these companies to stay present in U.S. infrastructure. They even created a new council this month, the Council on National Security, specifically to investigate this.
Shows how seriously they're taking this. Even with the bans and the ongoing removal, the possibility of circumvention is a huge worry for national security.
It puts smaller telecom carriers in a tough spot. Replacing that Chinese equipment is super expensive, and finding alternatives isn't always easy.
True. And it highlights the broader competition in the telecom sector. If these national security concerns are truly addressed, it could open up opportunities for other vendors.
This all boils down to a clear message. National security comes first, even if it means economic and logistical hurdles. The constant scrutiny shows how much the U.S. government views these companies as a lasting threat.
A threat that demands constant vigilance. And it raises questions about trust and security in the global tech supply chain.
Now, onto a particularly sneaky development. Medusa Ransomware is using a malicious driver to disable EDR, endpoint detection and response, and other security tools. This shows how ransomware tactics are becoming more advanced, more dangerous.
It's a worrying trend, using signed malicious drivers to get past security. Elastic Security Labs found this driver called Smool.sys, also known as Abyss Worker. It was cleverly disguised as a legitimate CrowdStrike Falcon component, even though it had a revoked Chinese digital certificate.
And because it was signed, it could have easily slipped past basic signature-based detection. Plus, the things this driver can do are pretty extensive. It can kill processes, mess with files, remove those system hooks security software uses for monitoring, even force reboots, all at the kernel level.
Kernel-level access is a game-changer for ransomware. It can disable security measures that operate in user mode, giving Medusa a free pass to encrypt everything. And the same driver has been seen in other attacks under a different name, nbwdv.sys.
So they're sharing and reusing these tools.
Yeah.
Doesn't make you feel any better, does it?
Not really. Thankfully, Elastic released a sample loader to detect this specific driver, but it's a reminder for security teams to be extra vigilant. Kernel-level activity and driver integrity need constant attention.
Absolutely. Basic user mode security just isn't enough when the threat is operating at the kernel level, with unrestricted access to the heart of the OS. Driver monitoring, integrity checks, and up-to-date threat intel are vital.
Can't emphasize that enough. The threat landscape is constantly changing. We need to stay ahead of the curve.
Now, for some slightly better news, NetSphere launched what they claim is the first quantum-resilient messaging platform. They're targeting enterprise and government clients specifically.
That's a smart move, especially with the NSA's CNSA 2.0 mandate coming up in 2027. NetSphere's platform uses NIST's ML-Chem Kyber algorithm and AES 256 for end-to-end encryption. They're ahead of the curve when it comes to being ready for potential threats from quantum computing.
And they're emphasizing crypto agility. Basically, the ability to easily switch out encryption algorithms if or when quantum computers become a real threat to current encryption methods. Their CEO seems confident in the ML-Chem algorithm, but says they're prepared to adapt.
That forward-thinking approach is crucial. The immediate threat from quantum computers to current encryption is still a few years away. But organizations dealing with highly sensitive information need to start moving towards quantum-resistant solutions.
Unlike many consumer-focused encrypted messaging apps, they're going for that high-security market, enterprises and governments. Having flexible multi-factor authentication options helps organizations balance those tough security needs with making things easy for users. It's a smart play, especially with that 2027 deadline looming.
Definitely a strategic move to secure a chunk of the national security systems market. As quantum computing advances, the demand for quantum-resistant security is only going to rise. Getting in early could give NetSphere a real edge as long as they can meet those strict security and compliance standards.
Switching gears again, Albabat ransomware, also called Whitebat, is expanding its reach. It's not just Windows anymore. It's now targeting Linux and macOS systems too. And get this, they're using GitHub in a pretty clever way for their command and control setup.
This is a big evolution for Albabat. It started out targeting Windows via social engineering, but hitting other major operating systems significantly expands their potential victim pool.
Trend Micro's research uncovered samples that are actively fetching configurations and even executable parts from a private GitHub repository. The username is Bill Borgian, and it's been updated recently. They're using the GitHub REST API with what looks like a harmless user agent string to download commands for all sorts of nasty stuff, avoiding folders, stopping processes, and of course, encrypting various file types.
It's a clever tactic. Using GitHub for command and control provides anonymity and makes it harder for security tools to spot malicious activity. Traffic to and from GitHub is often seen as legitimate, and the fact that it's a private repo adds another layer of obscurity.
Trend Micro says Albabat is still being actively developed. There are signs of a version 2.5 in the config files. This cross-platform capability, plus the way they're exploiting cloud services like GitHub, makes this ransomware particularly dangerous. Protecting GitHub access tokens and watching for unusual activity on these platforms is becoming more and more important.
Absolutely. It highlights the need for a security strategy that goes beyond endpoint protection. We need to monitor how cloud services are being used and be aware of unconventional command and control channels.
We've talked about this before, but the debate about encrypted messaging apps and government transparency continues. The Maui wildfire brought those challenges into sharp focus. Officials apparently used Signal to communicate, which created problems for investigators trying to access potential records.
It's the classic conflict between the promise of privacy these apps offer and the need for transparency and accountability in government. While these tools are great for secure communication, features like automatic message deletion and their resistance to public records laws can hinder investigations and limit public access to vital information.
The Associated Press found that over 1,100 government employees across all 50 states are using encrypted messaging app accounts. Not saying they're all doing anything wrong, but the lack of clear policies and inconsistent record-keeping practices raises concerns about potential misuse, whether intentional or not.
CISA, the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, acknowledges the usefulness of these apps for secure communication, but warns against using them in a way that circumvents public records laws. It's a tough balancing act between secure communication and the public's right to know.
And different states have different approaches, from outright bans on using them for work on government devices to no clear guidance at all. It shows how much we're struggling to adapt legal frameworks to these rapidly changing technologies.
Exactly. We need stronger legal frameworks that require systematic archiving of official communications, regardless of the platform. The core issue is that technology is outpacing policy development. It creates a dangerous gap where crucial information could be lost or inaccessible.
Cloak Ransomware is claiming responsibility for an attack on the Virginia Attorney General's office, reportedly back in February. They say systems crashed, VPN connections were disrupted, and staff had to resort to pen and paper.
The Virginia Attorney General's office hasn't said much, but those disruptions sound a lot like a classic ransomware attack. Cloak also claims they exfiltrated data and published it on their Tor-based leak site. Sounds like extortion, which, unfortunately, is common in these cases.
Cloak has been active since 2022, claiming attacks on over 65 victims, though not all have been independently verified. Attacking a state government like this seems like a step up for them.
It could be a way for them to gain notoriety and leverage for future attacks. Their demands might increase.
They're supposedly using a variant of AR crypto ransomware, which has links to the leaked Babuk source code.
That connection to Babuk is significant. Shows how ransomware operators reuse and adapt publicly available code. Lowers the bar for new or less skilled attackers to get in on the action.
Without more information from the Virginia Attorney General's office, it's tough to know the full extent of the damage or what data might have been compromised. But it's a clear reminder that public sector organizations are becoming prime ransomware targets. Strong cybersecurity is essential to protect critical infrastructure and sensitive information.
Absolutely. They often hold tons of sensitive citizen data, making them tempting targets. They need to be prepared with robust incident response plans and proactive security measures.
This next one is fascinating and a little unnerving. There's a new jailbreak technique called immersive world that uses fictional stories to get AI to create malicious software.
It's a creative and potentially very disruptive development. Researchers at Cato Networks built a detailed fictional world, complete with characters and a goal of making malware. They use this to guide large language models, LLMs, like DeepSeek, Copilot, and ChatGPT, into generating working malicious code. In this case, it was a Chrome information stealer.
And the researcher behind the narrative supposedly had no experience with malware development. They just crafted the story, gave feedback to the AI, and the LLM basically acted as a coding assistant, producing functional malware.
Shows the double-edged sword of advanced AI. It has huge potential for good, but its ability to understand and generate code based on natural language prompts can be exploited. Immersive World bypasses traditional security by manipulating the AI's understanding within that fictional context.
Cato Networks did the right thing and told the major AI vendors about their findings. But the fact that they could create an info stealer so easily is a warning sign. It lowers the technical bar for criminals and suggests AI could be used to automate and scale malware creation in the future.
CISOs need to pay close attention to this. It's a new and rapidly evolving threat vector.
The implications for cybersecurity are huge. As AI models get more sophisticated, so will the techniques used to exploit them. Organizations need to think about how AI could be weaponized against them and adapt their security strategies accordingly.
Absolutely. We need to be proactive and anticipate these emerging threats.
ESET just released a detailed report on Operation Fish Medley, directly linking the Chinese iSoon hacking group, also known as Fishmonger, to breaches of 7 organizations across several countries back in 2022.
This report gives us a close look at the TTPs, the tactics, techniques, and procedures used by this threat actor. iSoon is believed to be an offshoot of the Winty Group and potentially tied to China's Ministry of Public Security.
And they've been linked to other cyber espionage campaigns. The U.S. Department of Justice even indicted several iSoon members in 2024, which shows how seriously their actions are being taken.
Operation Fish Medley targeted a diverse group, including governments, NGOs, and think tanks in Taiwan, Hungary, Turkey, Thailand, the U.S., and France.
ESET found a pattern: manual reconnaissance, lateral movement within victim networks using tools like Impacket, and credential dumping through the LSAS process. They also found known backdoor malware like ShadowPad and Spider, and a new reverse shell called RPipe Commander.
Discovering and analyzing RPipe Commander is a big deal. It's a custom-built, multi-threaded reverse shell that allows commands to be executed through the CMD command line. Shows how these APT groups are constantly developing and adapting their malicious tools.
This detailed report reminds us of the constant and sophisticated threat from state-sponsored actors. Their campaigns are usually targeted and well-resourced. Understanding their TTPs is key to defending against them.
Absolutely. Attribution is crucial. Knowing who's behind an attack helps us understand the threat landscape and develop effective defense strategies. Reports like ESET's give security professionals valuable intel to identify and mitigate those risks.
Google's massive acquisition of Wiz, the cloud security firm, for $32 billion is generating lots of buzz in the cybersecurity world. This is a major move, especially considering Wiz reportedly turned down a $23 billion offer from Google just last year. Apparently, they had IPO aspirations. Now, this deal is the biggest cybersecurity acquisition ever.
Google is clearly serious about upping its cloud security game and competing more aggressively in the multi-cloud security market. Wiz has built a strong reputation for their innovative platform, especially its ability to provide comprehensive visibility and identify risks across complex cloud environments.
The industry reaction is mixed. Some see this as a trend-setting mega deal that might get attention from antitrust regulators. Others wonder if Wiz can truly stay neutral and independent now that they're part of Google, who competes directly with AWS and Azure. There's also speculation about whether Wiz will operate independently, like YouTube after Google acquired them, or if their tech and teams will be more tightly woven into Google Cloud.
It'll be interesting to see how this plays out. Wiz's fast growth and strong market presence made them a prime target for acquisition, but integrating a company with such a strong identity into a giant like Google can be tricky. The success of this acquisition hinges on Google leveraging Wiz's tech and talent while maintaining its core value for customers using different cloud platforms.
Some analysts think this is Google's response to trying to catch up to AWS and Azure in terms of security credibility, especially given Wiz's impressive recent sales and market penetration. Concerns about vendor lock-in and Wiz's true cloud agnosticism under Google's ownership are also swirling around.
This is a development that will have ripple effects throughout the entire cybersecurity industry. How this acquisition reshapes the cloud security landscape remains to be seen.
Hellcat Ransomware is claiming they successfully hit both Ascom, the Swiss telecom provider, and Jaguar Land Rover, the car manufacturer. This unfortunately reinforces the point that compromised credentials are still a major vulnerability that attackers can exploit.
These attacks, if true, show how dangerous credential-based attacks remain. Hellcat supposedly got into Jaguar Land Rover systems using stolen credentials from LG Electronics employees. Some of those credentials apparently date back to 2021.
It's a reminder that strong password management and regular credential rotation are crucial, even for third-party vendors who can access internal systems.
Ascom publicly acknowledged a breach on March 16th affecting their ticketing system. Hellcat claims to have taken a lot of sensitive data, contracts, source code, internal docs. But Ascom says their core operations weren't significantly affected. Jaguar Land Rover hasn't publicly addressed these claims.
Hellcat has hit big companies before, like Schneider Electric and Telefonica. They're clearly not new to this. The fact they're leveraging stolen credentials, often found on the dark web, underlines the need for organizations to proactively monitor for compromised credentials tied to their domains and implement strong multi-factor authentication everywhere.
Absolutely. Even with good internal security, weaknesses in the supply chain and third-party partners reusing old credentials can give attackers an easy way in. Continuous monitoring and proactive threat intelligence are critical to mitigate these risks.
This should be a wake-up call for organizations of all sizes. A security lapse anywhere in the supply chain can have serious consequences for everyone involved.
Security needs to be a collaborative effort across the board.
This next story is a disturbing reminder of the human element in cybersecurity. Former NFL and University of Michigan assistant coach Matt Weiss has been indicted on serious charges. He's accused of hacking into the personal data of multiple athletes, specifically trying to get intimate pictures.
This is a serious breach of trust and privacy. Mr. Weiss allegedly accessed a database with sensitive medical information of over 100,000 athletes from numerous colleges spanning 8 years.
He then supposedly targeted the social media, email, and cloud storage of over 2,000 athletes, mainly women, trying to find intimate photos. The indictment says he even kept detailed notes on their physical traits and habits.
The details are truly disturbing. He was fired by the University of Michigan last year for refusing to cooperate with an internal investigation. His home was later searched by law enforcement.
This case highlights how entrusted access can be abused and the devastating impact data breaches can have on people's privacy and well-being. And he allegedly used open-source intelligence techniques to bypass encryption, showing how resourceful malicious actors can be, even without advanced tech skills.
It also raises serious questions about the security protocols and access controls of the vendor whose database was compromised.
The U.S. Attorney for the Western District of Michigan has stated their commitment to prosecuting this case. This is a reminder of the importance of strong data security and the potential for people in positions of trust to exploit vulnerabilities for personal gain, causing significant harm to unsuspecting victims.
It's a wake-up call for organizations to review and strengthen their data access controls, implement multi-layered security, and provide comprehensive training to anyone handling sensitive personal information.
Finally, details have emerged about a supply chain attack affecting GitHub Actions, the platform many use to automate software development. A popular action, TJ Actions Changed Files, used in over 23,000 repositories, was compromised. This could have exposed sensitive secrets stored in thousands of software projects.
It's a stark reminder of the risks that come with relying on third-party components in software development. This action was injected with malicious code designed to steal CI/CD secrets. The root cause: a vulnerability in ReviewDog's action setup.
A malicious actor apparently got hold of a personal access token, a PAD, belonging to the TJ Actions bot, likely due to overly permissive contributor settings in the ReviewDog project or a compromised user account.
Emphasizes the need for least privilege, especially when managing access tokens and permissions in CI/CD environments.
The initial target seems to have been Coinbase's AgentKit project, but their secrets were thankfully safe. However, over 160,000 dependent projects were potentially at risk. Thankfully, it seems the actual leakage of long-lived access tokens was limited.
ReviewDog has fixed the vulnerability, and GitHub is urging developers to check their use of third-party actions and ensure they're following security best practices.
2 CVEs have been issued because of this incident. It highlights that the software supply chain is a major attack surface. Developers need to be incredibly careful about the external dependencies they bring into their projects. Regular audits and scrutiny are essential.
This is a valuable lesson in supply chain security. We need robust security throughout the entire software development lifecycle, from managing third-party dependencies to handling sensitive secrets and credentials.
And last but not least, a new report from Menlo Security details a concerning surge in AI-powered phishing attacks targeting web browsers. The research shows a 140% jump in these attacks over the past year. Zero-hour phishing attacks saw an even bigger jump, 130% in the same time frame.
This is a clear sign that phishing attacks are evolving, becoming more sophisticated and widespread, thanks in part to AI. Attackers are now using AI to craft more convincing and personalized phishing campaigns, creating realistic fake websites and even deepfakes. It's getting harder to spot these scams, even for security-conscious users.
Menlo Security found hundreds of fake websites posing as legitimate AI platforms. These sites were spreading malware-laden PDFs, bypassing the need for credential theft and going straight for ransomware payloads.
The rise of phishing-as-a-service platforms is also worrying. It makes these advanced attack techniques available to a much wider range of attackers.
Mobile devices are particularly susceptible due to their smaller screens and the tendency to use auto-login features.
AI's ability to quickly generate realistic and relevant phishing content on a large scale is a game-changer. Traditional security awareness training might not be enough anymore. Organizations need to implement strong browser security, like sandboxing and isolation, to prevent these threats from reaching users.
Experts are saying this surge is just the beginning of AI-powered phishing. Web browsers are now primary targets, and we need a multi-layered approach to security to protect ourselves and our users. This means patching vulnerabilities, implementing comprehensive browser security controls, and educating users about the evolving threats and phishing techniques.
The web browser has become the main operating system for many people, making it a very attractive target for bad actors. We need to combine strong tech defenses with ongoing user education to combat these increasingly sophisticated and dangerous attacks.
Well, that wraps up our look at the top cybersecurity news for March 25th, 2025. It's a reminder of how quickly things change in this field.
Every one of these news stories has implications for cybersecurity professionals everywhere. We need to be vigilant, adapt our strategies, and keep learning in this ever-changing threat landscape.
And it's striking how connected these threats are. From nation-state actors to ransomware groups to individuals exploiting data access. This interconnectedness highlights the need for organizations to have a comprehensive and proactive security posture that covers all angles.
A layered approach is essential, combining strong technology, well-trained people, and defined security processes to navigate this increasingly complex landscape.
And remember, Cybersecurity HQ is a community offering a cybersecurity job board, news updates, in-depth reports, and a weekly newsletter reaching over 70,000 cybersecurity professionals. Stay informed, stay vigilant, and stay secure.
Well, next time.
Take care, everyone.